Alright everyone, a few of Trump's core fans may be addled by this a bit, which is that Trump appears to be willing to at least temporarily let the Iran deal stay as is. Now Tillerson's hardballing them. Trump's not really weighing in, but it looks like the Iran deal will be kept actually in its Obama-era form. And I don't care. I actually don't have a problem with this. This is one thing that never mattered during the election. One way or the other. In fact, it miffed me slightly that he fixated on it so totally there for a while and sort of got off track talking about the good things he wanted to do, like, oh, tax reform or, you know, securing the border or something like that. I don't want a warmonger after the Iranians. And I don't care about this deal. It never should have been struck, not because I'm worried about Iran and, oh, well, this gives them money or anything, but because it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter to me if they have a nuclear energy program, which is what it appears that they have, and the Senate has now confirmed, and this is a Senate led by Republicans, mind you, that they're actually abiding by the tenets of the deal. Now, the tenets of the deal, you can say, well, it's lackluster, it's too weak. Who cares? Who cares? Are you considering the possibility of attacking Iran? That's what Hillary said she wanted to do. I don't want to attack the Iranians. I don't care if they do get an atomic weapon. But when I look at all things considered, Netanyahu and people like that were telling us back in the 1990s that Iran was going to have an atomic weapon within a year or two. And they never got it. Look at the difference between how a lot of countries in the world and the U.S. government have viewed Iran versus North Korea. About Iran, they started decades ago saying they're going to get an atomic weapon. They're going to get an atomic weapon. They're going to nuke the Israelis. They're going to nuke, you know, Iraq. They're going to nuke Turkey. They're going to nuke us. They're going to become just this huge, massive juggernaut. It'd be worse than the Soviets. Just be so powerful. They're going to be launching missiles everywhere, and we won't be able to stop them. We got to preemptively strike them. Back in the 90s, they started talking like that, and it never happened. Their progress, if their goal is to build even the most crude of atomic weapons, they're a good 10 years behind the North Koreans. Meanwhile, on North Korea, people said, oh, don't you cross that red line, and then they shut up when they did, over and over and over again as they progressed towards having an atomic weapon. They got them. Supposedly that was the last red line. We did nothing. They developed long-range missiles. Supposedly that was the final red line. We did nothing. They're now talking about how they really, really want to be able to fit an atomic weapon on one of those long-range missiles, as well as make multi-stage weapons. Now that's the final red line. When they eventually cross it, will we do anything? Who knows? They've already got atomic weapons outside of the NPT. So do the Israelis. I don't see us doing anything about that. Why are we so morbidly fixated on the nation of Iran, as though it was the great Satan of our time? And they say, oh, America, the great Satan. Well, it seems, I mean, they're just sort of reflecting back what a lot of at least evangelicals and conservatives in this country say about Iran. We got to take care of them because of their location and who they complain about on a regular basis. Oh, the North Koreans? Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to do anything about that. It's just fucking Japan. It's just fucking South Korea. Who cares if they get blitzed in an atomic fire? Who cares? Japan's been nuked before. It's no big deal. They'll rebuild or something like that. Are you crazy? As for the Iran deal, I don't care if Trump leaves it in place. I realize it's an Obama-era deal, but here's the problem. Number one, how can we even guarantee that they're trying to get an atomic weapon? Supposedly, they were already trying to get one in the 90s. That's some slow as fuck progress right there. We kept getting told, there were like a dozen instances in which people said, they're going to have one in 6 months. They're going to have one in a year. Maybe half a decade at most. And time after time after time, it never happens. Number two, they've already gotten the money from the deal, so I don't know what you're so worried about. Unless someone suggests that we throw them more money at some point in the future, which I would oppose, because I don't think we should be giving foreign aid to anybody, including our allies. Unless they've just suffered a massive natural disaster and they really, really need it in order to, you know, prevent their culture from collapsing completely or something like that. And right now, I don't see that around the world. If anything, Venezuela deserves our money more than the Iranians or anybody else in the world does. They could use it more, trust me. And number three, this was never something that I didn't care about this. When Trump was talking about, oh, we're going to rescind the Iran deal, we're going to really hardball the Iranians, slap more sanctions on them. That's not even something I necessarily support. I don't really care what Iran does. They're not affecting me. They're not affecting anything, really. They're propping up Assad's regime. I can understand why Obama had a problem with that. I can understand why the Never Trump Warhawks had a problem with that. Why do I care? Assad's attacking ISIS. I wish him well. I don't care if he continues to exist as the leader of Syria. If the Iranians are helping him, for once they're doing something good in the world, I guess. Yeah, huzzah, more power to them. I don't care. The Shia government of Iraq, when they beat up on ISIS, in partnership with Iran. Good. Yeah, I think it's a good thing that they're doing. Russia, too. All this fear-mongering about them is just as unjustified as worrying about Iran getting an atomic weapon. They've never attained one. And the U.S. government, at least parts of it, would have you believe that, oh, well, that's because of our sanctions. That's because of this. Didn't work on North Korea, now did it? They got them. And they've got a... you think the North Korean economy is as powerful as Iran's, or their industry, or anything else about them? Iran has more people. Iran has more money. It certainly has more energy resources, other than coal. North Korea ships that to China. It's certainly making more money off of those resources. It's also got a partner in Russia that's a little bit more involved directly with investing than China is mainly in North Korea in the past, in the lead up to them getting these atomic weapons. North Korea already has them. If you want to dickwag and warmonger after somebody and think that you're going to change the world for the better, the only place you can do that right now is North Korea. Iran, ultimately, if we got involved there, would be far worse off. In fact, our involvement in Iran in the first place is what caused them to become more of an Islamo-fascist style Shia, but Islamo-fascist culture. They were liberal before that. The Afghanis were liberal. Libya was liberal compared to what it is today. Thanks, Obama. Thanks, Clinton. Every time we get involved in a culture that is innately geared over towards zealotry, which has been culturally suppressed because of a strong man or because of a representative system, whether it works well with us and plays nicely or not. Every time we do that, it falls back into the Dark Ages. Afghanistan was, in its urban cores, liberalized in the 1970s. There are pictures of Osama bin Laden wearing clothing, and flanked by people wearing clothing, that wouldn't have looked out of place at a disco club in Los Angeles around 1975 or something like that. There are pictures of this. And yet now they're in the Dark Ages. There's no development there at all. It's fallen backwards 500 years other than they have, AK-47s and hand grenades. It's the only difference. And occasionally an armored jeep or something that they took from the U.S. military when they were fighting the Soviets. We did the same in Libya. We almost did the same in Egypt and Syria. Thank goodness they're resistant to it. I don't want to destabilize Iran. I don't want Iran to go from 10% liberalized and 90% zealot to 100% zealot, like some of these countries have gone. They managed to maintain the rudiments of liberalism and urbanization, despite their cultural overthrow there in favor of hardline Shia. There are still redeeming facets to their culture that are there. We would destroy what remains of those. It would be better to sit back, do nothing, and hope they undergo a liberal revolution and give up the sort of zealot line. Or to do nothing and not even care. Let them have their culture and leave them alone. I do not feel threatened by the Iranians, and I don't care if Trump maintains this deal. No, we shouldn't have a deal, because we should ignore them. There shouldn't be sanctions. I don't care. Human rights violations aside. Yeah, that's terrible when people get, hanged or beheaded. It happens in Saudi Arabia all the time. I don't see the U.S. government slapping sanctions on them. What, because they're Sunni? Because they control Mecca and you're afraid? You're afraid they'll shut off the oil spigot or something? It's all about economics. You don't honestly think that anyone in the U.S. government cares about liberating the Iranian people, do you? I don't think they do. Nor, for that matter, do the Russians or the Chinese, when they claim that they want to save people from some butcherous group. Why do you think Russia's in Syria? You think it's because they want to maintain a secular, authoritarian democracy, or do you think it's primarily economics and military strategy? They're in there for economics and military strategy. They'd kill Assad themselves if they thought they could profit by it. And they're going to prop him up. Good. Yeah, lesser of both evils. Iran, lesser of all evils to have the people currently running it. By the way, they've partially liberalized anyway. In their last election, the old line zealots got swept aside, which might be why there's so much warmongering about Iran right now. They probably want them to go further into the Dark Ages so that they can't possibly pose any threat other than, guerrilla groups and terrorists. Groups that can be bought off by the CIA or something like that. What if the KGB comes around and pays them off instead? I don't think these people have fully taken stock of the situation. I don't care what Iran does. I don't care if they have an atomic program, because they don't appear to be any closer to making an atomic weapon than they were in the 90s. So yeah, who fucking cares? That's about all. Peace out.